Hello and welcome to today's episode of Dream Business, Dream Life. Today I'm joined by Eve Stanway. Eve is a divorce and breakup coach, psychotherapist, and author of Conversations at the Shoreline, which by the time this goes live, we are super excited because it will be out there. We're going to talk lots about the book today, but for now, hello Eve, how are you?
Very well, thank you, Emma. Thank you so much for having me on your podcast. I'm really looking forward to it.
My absolute pleasure. As ever, I'm going to dive straight into this and I'm going to hand straight over to you, Eve, to tell us a little bit more about who you are and what has got you to where you are right now.
So, I am a psychotherapist and a breakup and divorce coach. I've been a psychotherapist for about 25 years, and I've spent probably realistically, the last 8 or 9 years as a divorce and breakup coach. And my I suppose to explain where I've got to right now is to, well, partly talk about my kind of wider personal journey, but partly it's really instruction from the client space, if you like. Um, Working with people in a one-to-one basis, you have this wonderfully privileged set of conversations that you have with people about their lives. And it became more and more clear to me that people were coming to me with anxiety and relationship problems and worry thoughts and all sorts of different things. But at the heart of it, there was a desire very often to speak about their experience and share what their needs were, share what their thoughts were. And often the people that I spoke to, they would be quite anxious about doing it. They would be scared that it would be confrontational. Even coming and seeing somebody that was specially there for them to speak to it was difficult for them to do that. And I started to think, before I got into psychotherapy, I had a background in philosophy and the way we think and the way we speak. And I started to think, what's going on here? And what I realized was, first of all, an awful lot of the trouble stemmed from childhood. Um, we've now got a generation who very often has grown up in a separated household, one way or another. It's much more familiar now for children, sadly. And so many of those issues finding it difficult to talk about things came from people not there were periods of their life during the time that their parents were going through breakup where they were unclear, like nothing was said to the children. They didn't know that part of their own history, and often it had been quite frightening and quite insecure and quite argumentative and or silent, nothing said, just change happening. And it caused me to reflect back into my own childhood. My parents separated when I was about 7. Didn't know anything about it. I mean, nothing. I had the vaguest ideas. And then, very sadly, in 2017, my own long marriage came to an end, and my children were of an age where they were trying to get on with their own lives. They were still young and living at home, and I didn't really know how to handle that. I didn't know how much to tell them. And so, when you kind of putting all these bits and pieces together, I started to think, gosh, how we have those conversations about how we're thinking, about how we're feeling, about what we need, about what's happened to us, or about what we want to know. People worry that that's going to lead to conflict, or it's going to lead to shaming, or blaming, or overwhelm, or shutdown, and all these negative things. And I thought, hmm, I'm very interested in this. Because this isn't about whether people are good or bad people. People's behavior can get terrible when they're in this situation. And I decided I'm going to retrain as a divorce and breakup coach. And this book idea that I'd had in my mind for years and years about being helping people explain how they were feeling, kind of it went through many versions, but it came together as the book that I've written now, which is how not just that we need to hold boundaries or not that we need to have difficult conversations, actually, how? How do you do it? Because it's all very well to know that you have to do something, but we need to know how to do it. And so that is how I got here. It's been a long journey, lots of turns, but it's kind of landed almost as if this was the target that was always intended. which is
The world
bizarre.
does that sometimes, doesn't it? Just
It
brings us
really
back
does.
to the
Yeah.
place, and you think,
Yeah.
haha, this is it. This is where I was always
Yeah.
heading for. This is the
I
direction I was
know.
supposed to be going in, and now I found
Yeah.
it. And I think you've hit the
Mm.
nail on the head in so many situations there, haven't we? That as
Mm.
humans, our natural instinct is to avoid something rather than to
Yeah.
actually go and deal with what we've got to deal with. And that is
Mm.
because we just don't know how to handle it. We don't know what to
Yeah.
say. We don't want to upset
Yeah.
people. We think we're
Mm.
protecting people by saying nothing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I
I
think that
agree.
definitely stands out with children and divorce, doesn't it? Because I also came from a family that was, my parents were divorced.
Mm.
And I equally there was no conversations had with me
Mm.
around it. It just sort of happens
Yeah.
around you, doesn't it?
It
Um,
does.
and I think we probably just wanted to know what was going on, how it affected
Yeah.
us, how
Mm.
life was going to change for us. And if someone had just been
Mm.
honest with us as children, it would have made such a difference, wouldn't it?
I think it really would. Children very much observe their parents, and children are so reliant upon their parents. And there's so many ways that change and turmoil happens in a family life. Could be because somebody loses a job, because somebody's ill, because we lose somebody, because a relationship breaks down or is difficult. And for children, you know, a lot of the people I work with, they're worried about whether their children are going to be okay. And it does matter. But the thing is, our children's okayness is down in part to our ability to manage in a calm way some really difficult conversations during the marital breakdown, but also being able to hear our children's complaints. And that's what I see a lot. I think a lot of the fear of difficult conversations or the worry that it will lead to conflict is because as children are so good at asking questions. You know, meet a 4-year-old and you meet somebody who's got a lot of questions about a lot of things. And those questions can very, very easily become annoying if we're irritated or if we're distracted because we're going through this really difficult conflict with a partner, or we're worried about money or health or whatever it is. And so what happens is that the child can get shut down very, very quickly. And quite a lot of what I talk about in the early chapters of my book is the way that silence becomes a kind of protection, that it initially is a protection to just be quiet and not say anything because you don't want to upset your mum or your dad or be shaming or complain or whatever it is. And then that silence, what it ends up doing is actually it starts as a form of protection and then eventually it becomes a barrier that we can't get beyond. We don't know how to go past that. And I think a lot of people who are scared of speaking, it's because when they were children, they may have been scared of what was going to happen. So they were scared to talk about it. Children are really superstitious. Children worry loads. Children often have a lot to say. And if they don't feel that they can say it, what happens is their incomplete thoughts, because they're not adults and child brains are different than adult brains, their incomplete thoughts kind of turn inwards and they turn into perfectionism or unworthiness or a sense that they're at fault, they've caused it, they've done something bad. And it's very, very easy for children to pick that up. So parents will often say to me, well, I'm just going to tell my children that everything will be okay. And my advice is tell them everything's going to be difficult. Tell them everything is not going to feel okay. Tell them that you don't really know what okay is going to be, but what you are going to do is that you're going to be there alongside them throughout the whole process, that you will remain willing to listen to them, hear what they have to say, and share what they need to know. Remembering that small children understand the world in one way. Children don't really know they don't really have a concept for time really until they're 6 or 7. They just know it in number of sleeps till Christmas. Yeah. So
364.
yeah, that's what they know. How many sleeps till my birthday? How many sleeps till the summer holiday? So they don't really have that concept of time. And that also means they don't have a concept of being able to look back and know it'll be okay. So the calmer and safer we can be, the better for them. And that's something I'm really, really passionate about because in every space I ever work in, if there are children, I always feel there's a space within that room for the child whose voice may not be being heard. Um, That doesn't mean you have to do everything your kids say by any means, but it does mean that we need to listen to them and let them know it's okay to speak. Um, and that's what I'm very passionate about,
Yeah, yeah. Do you
being
think
able to
that's a
say how we
learned
feel.
behavior, something that we all, because I don't think any parent intends to be a bad parent, do they? In the sense that, they're hurting or
No,
upsetting their children. No parent goes out with the intention of doing that. But
no.
do you think it's just because it's what's happened to us, so to speak? So, you come from a divorced family, they don't have those conversations with you, so you think that's the way that you do it. So you do the same thing if you go through divorce. Do you
Yeah,
think that's where that sort of
I
comes from?
think
Because a lot of
I
things are,
think
aren't they?
I think it partly comes from that. I think it comes partly from the fact that children are really complicated creatures to raise. It doesn't matter how many children you've got, they're all very different from each other. They have very wonderful and unique characteristics. Children are very exuberant, they're very questioning. I mean, they're going to become adult humans, and adult humans are pretty phenomenal. We really are. You can look around the planet and see that. And I remember when I got my border collie, people were like, oh, a border collie, it'll need lots of exercise and it'll be highly intelligent. And I'm like, I'm raising two children. They like, they're even more, you know. And so I think throughout history, one way of dealing with children has been to require obedience and silence. Children should be seen and not heard. That a child who talks back is being disrespectful. That a child who complains is being ungrateful. That a child who is really struggling is being sensitive. So I think unconsciously written into our language, through no fault of anybody's, there is a narrative that somehow children who complain are misbehaving. And when the family is under stress, that becomes more so. And one of the things that's really important during divorce and breakup, which is why I care about it so much, is it isn't just the parents that split, it's the family that ruptures. There's a loss of grandparents. There's a loss of aunts and uncles and cousins. I've seen that in my own family. I witnessed it in my own upbringing, that there is a loss of connection towards within the wider community. And I remember when my son was born, he was my first child, and I remember sitting in the hospital thinking, Blimey, you don't know anyone.
Yeah,
That you don't know anyone in the world. That you know me and you know your dad, and you're going to get to know all these other people. Um, and then during divorce and breakup, that just breaks.
yeah,
And you don't have.
yeah. Your
So
your normal has changed completely, hasn't it? And there's
exactly,
a whole new normal that you've got to adapt to.
exactly. So silencing children who simply become too much, too vocal, too aggravating, too irritable, too whatever, it's kind of easy and unconscious. And Alice Miller talks about it in she wrote a book which is a hard read called For Their Own Good, which was about how children have been silenced. And although Alice Miller is now quite controversial, there's some truth in that. So what were you taught that you could talk back to your elders, Emma, when you were growing up?
Oh no, definitely
No,
not. Oh no.
no. And being older meant that you couldn't talk back to. So it's quite natural that as adults we're going to grow up fearing difficult conversations and fearing that it will lead to conflict because our first experience was probably very one-sided.
Yeah, true,
Um,
true.
but
So let's
yeah,
twist
I
this
do.
right back to the
Yeah,
book because I would love to
yes,
talk
yeah,
lots
yeah,
about the book because
yeah,
it seems weird saying this because we're recording this before it's live, but it is out
yeah.
there right now in the world for
It
people to
is.
go and buy. And we're going to share all of the
Yeah,
links so you can go and do that shortly. But
absolutely.
so you said that this has always been what you'd got in your mind that you wanted to write this
Mm.
book. Why specifically this book?
So it was interesting writing this book. There was a point where I'd written a version of what I thought I should write. I'd kind of, because I had a difficult upbringing in terms of schooling, I thought I'd better write something that looked very learned. And it is learned, my book, but I felt like I was writing for this kind of fictional audience that was going to judge me. There
Funny how
is an
we do
audience
that,
who
isn't it?
probably will judge me. Yeah, but it was like the judge was in my head. And so what this book ended up this way because I kind of pretty much deleted what I'd written up until early last year and started again because I realized that in order to really talk about difficult conversations, I needed to be comfortable with my own voice, but also encourage people to be comfortable with their voices. And for that reason, although it is very much a conversational book about how to have difficult conversations, I've got a structure in there, the magic three, which is clarify, communicate, and correct, which is to clarify what you want to say, to communicate it without shaming or blaming or being critical, and then correct, which means to repeat, not escalate, but repeat when the message doesn't get through. But I've also couched it in poetry that I wrote along the way, and memoir about my life, and case studies about the lives of other people that I've worked with. And the reason why I've done that is because I want to encourage people to be able to relate to this as a very human need. It's a very, very human need. If we look through history, if we look at the way, even in this world, that people are silenced and their voices are silenced, the need to speak, the need to communicate, to dare to speak is so important. And so it felt to me that when I was writing this book and when I really, really put my kind of heart into it, it was like, I'm going to dare to speak. And I'm going to dare to say that whether you are in business, whether it's your family breakdown, whether it's your personal life, whatever it is, whether you're talking to your older parents and you want to find out about what happened when the family broke down, that this is a human endeavor. Like at the heart, we're people, we're humans.
We
And
are.
so this book is born of that.
Okay, okay. So
Yeah.
who's it for? Who is the ideal reader of this book? Who's going to get the most juiciness out of it? Juiciness, great
The
word.
most juiciness. So this book is for, and I hesitate to say anybody, but it is for anybody because I've
Mhm.
carefully written so it's accessible. I haven't overcomplicated the language. I've kept things easy and simple and understandable because I want everyone to be able to access it. Even the poetry, I haven't kind of done cerebral poetry. It's just the poetry that came to my mind. I haven't been clever with it. I've just been um, caring with it. So my ideal reader is a person who has realized I'm silenced. I'm not living my life because I don't dare or I don't know how to find the words to share what matters to me. Or somebody who realizes that they know somebody that they deeply, deeply care about and they don't know how to get them to speak about what matters to them. So communication is intrinsically the person who speaks and the person who listens. So if a person wants to listen to someone else, I'm desperate to find out what you're thinking, what you're feeling. I need to know what my teenage child is actually worrying about because they're not talking. Yeah. It is for those people with a burning urge to communicate, don't know how to put together those early little ingredients of conversation to be able to say, I'm here and I'd like to say this to you.
So it's not specifically for breakup and divorce, conversations
No,
around breakup and divorce. It is for, I just wanted to be clear on that. It's for
yeah, yeah,
any
yeah,
difficult conversations between, so it could be difficult conversations in your business, it could be difficult conversations at home, it could be
yes,
difficult conversations
yeah,
with the team if you work. It's
yeah,
difficult conversations, full
it
stop.
is. Yeah,
Amazing.
and what I decided to do with this one, and I'm ambitious, you know me, Emma,
I
you know that
do.
I'm like this. So with this book, I just wanted to set the scene using like really, I've got a wide range of case studies, friendships where there's difficult conversations, siblings where there's difficult conversations, work colleagues, work colleague who speaks over you or doesn't include you, how you deal with that. I've used a wide range of examples. And my intention is to have this as a kind of base book, and then I suspect over time I will develop other resources. There are resources actually on my website where I dive much deeper into some of the case studies, and to some of the also I've got in my book quite a lot of grounding techniques of kind of how to calm our nerves because that's a real thing to have to do, like before coming on here. But I have also got some other books planned where I'd like to kind of dive into those difficult conversations with the older adults in our lives, especially with the rise in kind of memory loss and dementia and things like that, how we have those conversations as well as how we have those difficult conversations with our children, especially when when your own children maybe get into a difficult relationship and you want to be able to say, I'm there for you, but you don't want to be telling them what to do. You want to be able to help them talk about how they're feeling in that relationship. So my idea is to expand going forwards. I fully intend to expand the resources going forwards to dive deep into all these difficult conversations because every conversation we can have frees up another part of our life. It's like knocking a door into another room in your house and being able to go in there. It's just magical.
Yeah. And how lovely would it feel to know that you could wake up in the morning and that you could go and tackle those conversations that you've been
Yeah,
putting
yeah,
off for
yeah,
some people's
yeah.
case years and years and years, isn't it?
I
Things
know.
that people actually
Yeah,
want to do and say.
yeah.
So that is amazing. I can't
And I
wait
want to say
to dive
something
in.
really, like something really important as well, which is if you know how to have a really difficult conversation, and you really you all the planning, you read the book, you use the magic three, and the other person absolutely doesn't want to listen, they want to shut you down. I talk in the book that sometimes we just gotta walk away. Like it's okay. Like if you really, 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 and it's so important to say this. This isn't about like, oh, we're gonna make every relationship work. No, it is about knowing that we've done our best and actually I need to leave now. I need to walk away from that relationship. We're not going to resolve this now. I'm going. Yeah.
Amazing, amazing. So let's talk a little bit about that's a lot about the book. Hopefully that
Yes,
everybody
it is.
knows that they need a copy of this because it's going to affect
Yes.
all of us. We all have these difficult conversations we
Mm,
need to tackle. So let's talk about launch day. I know launch day will
mm,
be then it's the 10th of June, which is this
yes.
will be out on the 11th of June. So technically we're recording this before it's happened. But tell us about
Yeah.
launch. What does launch look like? Because launch isn't just there's the book and that's it, is it? Tell me about
No.
what's the plans for this book.
So I've had quite a few people say that launching a book is like giving birth, and I think it is actually. And what I've realized is there's life after.
There is.
There's life after launch. And I hadn't really kind of fully got to grips with that, but there is life after launch. There's all the other things that are happening. So launch day is going to be a full day of events. I've tried to make it spread out throughout the day so that there's lots going on so people can be involved. It'll be over all the social media. I'll have things on YouTube and on Facebook and on LinkedIn and probably, if I can dare, on TikTok if my daughter will let me. Um, so those things and Instagram, those things will be going on. And then afterwards, I've got various different events. I'm going to be talking at some bookshops. I've got a live launch party to coincide with my birthday party on the 21st of June up near where I live in East London. And then I'm going to be talking at Impact Live with Nicola Rowley and all of that team. And then I've got other events happening later on in the year at the Big Festoon and at your own growth event as well in December, which I'm really looking forward to. Um, so the launch is going to keep going. And what I'm hoping is that after the book launch, I can engage a much wider audience and really encourage people to kind of come forwards and start really talking about these difficult conversations and how we have them. That's what I want to do. I just want to start this movement where it becomes okay instead of this kind of binary conflict that we see a lot of at the moment, where people are being called names and they're this and they're that of actually how we resolve those situations because there's so much at the moment about finding our mission, finding our purpose, finding our values. And so much of that is being visible and so much of that is being heard. So that's my plan for the launch is to, if I could, start a conversation that goes on,
And
that just
such an
goes
important
forwards.
conversation, isn't it? And
Yeah,
and
yeah,
I think what you've just said there is absolutely key in anything we do in business, really. It's,
yeah,
you launch something, and that's not the end, is it? It's not, oh, I've done it
yeah,
now. I've written the book, I'm an author,
yeah,
yay. It's what you
yeah.
then do with that, because that is where the
Mm,
impact happens, isn't it? The impact
yeah.
happens when more people read the book, more people learn from the book, and more people can come into your world and you can support them in different ways. So how can you
Yeah.
support people?
So I at the moment I'm still doing quite a lot of breakup and divorce coach, and I work a lot with men, a lot with women, and weirdly, as a breakup and divorce coach, I do a lot of saving relationships. It was a who knew? I didn't know that that would be the case, but I actually work to help a lot. So people can work with me on a one-to-one basis. Um, But my ideal way, and the way that I've tried to make it really simple and easy to reach more people, because as I say, that is what I'm interested in. I am interested in growing this idea of conversation where we can de-escalate conflict and start to create connection, um, and understanding between people, because we've all got something going on in our head, and ideally we want to be able to share that with the people around us. So the ideal ways that people will be able to work with me is that I'm starting to produce some courses. So I have a course, Navigating with the Heart, which is specifically for parents who are supporting their children through separation and divorce. And that was the first course I did because it's just such in my heart to make that, children, parents. It's just so hard during divorce and breakup when you're worrying about your own children and whether they're going to be okay. And that's an online course where people can access all the videos, they can access the audio files. I've got workbooks so that they can work through. And I've also got a community that people can join where I'll be jumping on once a week. So there's still that access to me and we can talk about live situations. And then I'm developing as well a course which is in the back of the book, and off the back of the book, which is specifically how to understand your own voice, how to create a foundation for the difficult conversations you need to have, how to hold a boundary without becoming difficult or angry or aggressive, and how to have these difficult conversations. It is how to do it. And that is what I want to kind of take going forwards and create more resources for, um, how we do it.
Yeah, and that's really
Because,
important, isn't it? If you want to
yeah,
reach more people, impact more people's
mm,
lives, you have to do
yeah.
it in a way beyond one-to-one support because you can only
That's what I
help.
realized.
Yeah,
Yeah, you can only really help. I mean, you can, realistically, as a coach or a therapist, really, you're kind of 15 to 20 hours a week is really all you can manage and offer a really high value service to people. And as I say, I'm ambitious and I want to encourage more people, um, because I just think I think our lives get so bound up in conflict, and in the end, it hurts us as much as anybody else. And we don't live long enough to waste too much time in conflict.
we absolutely
So,
don't. And it's not a
yeah,
nice place to be, is it? It really isn't a nice place to
not
be.
really.
So, yeah,
Not.
absolutely, absolutely. So, it sounds like you have some really exciting things to come in the
Mm,
course of the next,
yeah,
well, I say the next few weeks, but and then
yeah,
beyond as
yeah.
well. So we're going to share in the show notes links to
Mm,
everything that Eve has got right now, which will be different in a week's time when this goes live. So we're going to
yeah.
share those in the show notes for you so you can go and learn all of that
Mm,
information. But before we come to an end today, and I hate coming to an end because we could literally
yeah.
talk about this all day, share with us, Eve, what would your top tip be for people who perhaps are in a position where they need to have that difficult conversation?
So, my top tip really is to recognize that calmness in ourselves. If we can become emotionally regulated, my top tip really is that when we are facing a difficult conversation, we create a story in our head, often with one person as the baddie and the other person as a goodie. Okay. And that's very unhelpful because there's a tendency to really build up the other person as the baddie, or very tragically, to build ourselves up as the baddie. And stepping away from that to these are just two people, two humans out of the many humans with something difficult to say and perhaps something difficult to hear. And if in the end we can think about it as just two people, one person might have been quite mean to the other person. The other person might have been quite mean back, but meanness never won anything. It's about, can I calm myself down to think about what is it I really want to say? And can I say that? And can I do it calmly? And when it doesn't work, because I say when because it never does work first time, it just doesn't work first time. What am I going to do next? Am I going to stay calm and repeat, or am I going to escalate or get frustrated or annoyed? And these are choices. With every breath we take, we have a choice. And the choice to stay calm, to say what we want to say, And if we really can't get any traction on it, that's a relationship that is not going to last. So we can just smile and walk away, and that's okay. It's okay too.
Amazing. Love that tip. Remembering you've got choices. So,
Yeah.
finally, if our listeners want to come and learn more from you, which I'm absolutely sure they will want to do, where's the best place for them to connect with you?
So there's a QR code behind me. If you shine your phone at the screen, unless you're watching this on your screen, on your phone, you will be able to connect there to my website, which is full of choices of things to look at, case studies and resources. And you will also find a link to pre-order or order the book, because it will be an order the book by the time this goes live. And that's where I would connect with me within my website, which is always changing, it's always being updated. You can also find me on social media, find me on, as I say, Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn. They're the main ones that I go to. But find me at my website and from there, and YouTube as well, because I'm going to really start putting more and more stuff in YouTube and kind of grow that so I can share more tips, because that's what I want to do. I just want to get what's in my head out there.
Amazing, amazing. And what is your website name?
On my website, it's www.evestanway.co.uk.
There you go. Super easy. So thank you so much for joining me today, Eve. I have absolutely loved our conversation and I hope you have too. And thank you to
It's been
everybody else
brilliant.
for listening. Sorry. Thank you everybody else for listening. We will see you next time.